Mr. Johnson for the hamburgers and our cheeseburgers.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks to Jerry.
Not going to take that bait, are you?
What?
Not going to take
Just
that bait.
nod my head.
Look, we won't let Rodney Dangerfield.
And can I follow up on that? And I would like the city attorney to let us know how we deal with that problem. You don't have to do it right now, but I think this council, all the laughter and nodding of heads, there is an agreement that $16 million is not minor. And what is our recourse as a council in terms of the definition of department and honoring the Lieutenant Charter? At some point, I would like an answer to that.
Second.
Second. There's a second there.
Neighborhood service.
Is it neighborhood service?
What's the reason there's not a commentary in the message on neighborhood services? There's golf. There's library. Am I missing it?
Y'all can go ahead. Yeah. Ready?
You ready?
Look at it.
Thank you, Mr. President and council members, for allowing us to present our budget to you. First thing we want to start off with was our organizational chart, and it's just showing you closer. Does that work? Oh, yeah. That works. Too good. Okay. Our organizational chart, it's just showing you our activities. We have the Office of the Director, Athletics, Recreation. We have a Maritime Park cultural events. We have the Osceola Municipal Golf Course. We have the Roger Scott Tennis Center. We have a volunteer program, and we also show the West Florida Public Library. The library came underneath or joined with our department this year, fiscal year 12. However, they had their separate section, and this year, if you look in our budget section, you will see that they've been combined with neighborhood services. However, they will be presenting their own budget presentation immediately following us. Some organizational changes that we'd like to bring to your attention is the Vince Webb Senior Community Park management contract that was awarded to neighborhood services this year. And part of that management contract includes 3 segments. It's the special event scheduling, the kiosk vendor, and parking sections. The other part is that I've already mentioned regarding neighborhood services and West Florida Library being combined with us. And we take just some more information regarding these management contract and the segments that we were awarded. We have the event scheduling. It includes the planning and coordination for the stadium, the amphitheater, the parks, and the plaza. And then we have the outside kiosk sales, which includes rentals and food service and other services that they may see would be beneficial to the park to offer to the citizens. And then we have the parking management.
Excuse me real quick. On these particular items, part of that contract, we had discussed as council, or I had requested, but it became part of reporting for accounting, how much time each employee is spending on these items for the CMP. Have y'all developed a tracking program or time sheets so that the citizens can see how much time is spent by neighborhood services on those 2 contracts?
We actually are charging out 2 of our people that are managing these responsibilities. One is Kim Carmody here, which I'm sorry, I had my notes to introduce and I didn't.
I know.
But she usually is being charged 50% to the CMPA for this contract.
So you're just allocating employee direct time,
Yes.
half of a person or whatever. You're not saying, okay, this person spent a few hours. I mean, if
Heather is, we have, and we were going to discuss that on another one,
Okay.
on the second position, because she is being charged 100% as a special event coordinator.
Okay.
And then the rest of the the rest of the people that we are using to fulfill this are EPS. I mean, whether we have a technical stage person for when we have the Blast from the Past concerts.
But you're not tracking all these expenses? That's my main concern.
They are.
That the citizens can see this event cost this much, and this is what was charged back to the CMP or to the special event, or because otherwise it's the hour here and the half hour there, and these supplies, go get a few out of the closet. That all adds up, and that's what I'm concerned about, is that, you know, we have other parks to take care of and other community centers and other focus that is being taken away from to run these events. So I just want to know what method of accounting or how we're tracking that.
We've actually, when they discussed bidding on this and taking the bid, Councilwoman DeWeese, we've set up a totally separate fund in order to account for these expenditures, and it's also accountability to the CMPA for the charges that we have. So the detailed charges are not part of the general fund where most of the other park activities are.
Okay.
It's a totally separate fund, a new fund that we had set up this year. As a matter of fact, Council on one of the resolutions when the contract was approved actually appropriated dollars to that. So this is completely separated from the general fund, and revenues relating to this are in that fund, and then expenditures that just for this contract and the Public Works contract are charged to this fund. So we're keeping that totally separated.
And do you recall that account number?
It's in the budget. It's Fund 126, but let me see what it's entitled.
And which one do
you have it entitled here, the Maritime Park Fund? I just.
Well, on the next slide, we have a small
Yeah.
financial report, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much how it's broken down.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, if we skip and go to the next one.
Okay, what are we going to?
It's just a small financial report that goes through period 9, and this is just dealing with the CMP Management Services Fund. So it's showing you your revenues for each of these categories and also the expenses. Keep in mind our event scheduling did not begin till after the grand opening schedule, and so the first event took place there, I believe, June 10th. And
if I could, it's page 66, the fund sheet for the 13 budget. It's on page 66, yeah, in the fund sheets.
Can you send us a copy of that?
All of this will, all these will be hung. Remember, I'd said before, all the presentations will be hung.
Okay, and that was paid.
Page 66 is the fund sheet that I'd mentioned. Councilwoman DeWeese said it's a totally separate fund, and it shows the proposed 13 budget and then the projected 14 budget.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Melinda.
that's okay, whatever. Would you like me to go back to the previous slide, or just continue from this point?
You're all right.
Am I right? Okay. Okay, sorry. We moved. Okay. Some of the management activities and the functions that fall within that function, which is accounted for in that way. Those special events will cover rentals, concerts, community events, and all those will be found in the CMP Management Services Fund. Then we have the vendor and kiosk. This is going to be structured in a 3-year tiered program, and a request for proposal is being developed, and we're hoping to have that out and available to the public in August. And for the first year, we are only looking for RFP for cart vendors. And this activity is also found in the CMP Management Services Fund. Yes.
I guess this is the time to bring it up. But, you know, I was involved, I've now resigned from the CMPA and was involved with operations and audit as well. Definitely there were representations that we would have public input in the development of the vendor program, and it didn't happen. Am I right?
That is correct.
And you're saying we're having a rollout in next month?
It's an RFP, but we are going to make the manual, which has been created, at the Audit Review Committee. That is the guidelines for just the push cart program itself. That we've gone with the push cart program because that will take off, and other cities it's been extremely successful. It's inexpensive, so that your first-time businessman can actually get on board initially. And we've also tiered the fees so that there's a season fee and then there's an off-season fee if they choose to go ahead and be in the October, November, December timeframe. That might be considered an off-season for their product.
Mm-hmm. So the manual is going to be presented at the next operations?
That is what we're working on with Ed, yes.
Okay. I think it would be a good PR and, I don't know what other word to use, but more community and citizen-friendly in the business community if they didn't just see something it's sort of like if the manual's already printed, then there is very much the impression that it's not malleable. And as an architect, I can say I've learned the hard way, but it was very, very valuable that my client interaction has always been more positive when those clients were invited to be part of the design process before they saw hard line drawings.
And I agree, and we definitely want the input of the community. I mean, we've had input, but not in a formal setting. It's been very informal, just talking to people and going to some EBO meetings, but definitely more input is welcome.
Okay. How will that input occur before the manual's printed?
The manual isn't printed, it's just been designed, and it's based on several other cities and what they have done that was successful, and it's based on input from just regular individuals that we've talked to about vending and what they were looking for in vending, and what we've kind of gathered from meetings that we've been to, and we put it together. And a lot of it has to do with how to become a vendor, quite frankly. Because the problem was individuals didn't know how to get a food handling license, what to do with the cart, did you need a commissary, those kind of things. Those are the major issues that we're actually addressing, is how do you actually get your license to do that. That had not been reviewed in the past, and so we did our research and put together a how-to manual. I mean, that is the bulk of it. How do you become a cart vendor for the city of Pensacola? And then we went through the guidelines of this is the sizes that we want. We're starting small and then we'll grow big because we are targeting the small businessman. We don't want to make it so expensive that they can't afford to be part of the program itself. And we had to take all of that in considerations because your carts and your vending, a cart could be $1,000 up to $20,000.
No,
yeah. So we were starting at a small, very small scale, and then we'll grow as the need arises. But that was kind of what we were doing. Part of it's an educational process. This is what you need to do to become a vendor. I mean, that takes up the majority of the actual manual itself. So it's nothing, I mean, we definitely want input. I love input. This would be great. And that's why we'll bring it to the Audit Review Committee. And we had a little how-to little trifold that went out, and that was received very well as well. Because a lot of them, they're part of our special event program, the vendors, they had to go through the same type of licensing that a full-time vendor would have to go through.
Okay. Thanks.
The next was the parking management activities, and we have CMP, parking across the street. They manage the parking for the baseball games, stadium special events that the stadium sponsors, the CMP special events, and CMP, and this is also accounted for in the CMP Management Services Fund. Then we have city parking lots, and we originally started with 3 lots. They were the school board lot, a state lot, Chappie James down there on Ruth Street, and the City Hall parking lot. As of today, we are only manning the City Hall parking lot due to lack of usage in the other 2 lots. So that revenue source is accounted for in the recreational fund. And from the time we started in April 2012 to 6/30/12, there is a net revenue, parking revenue of $4,573 there.
May I ask about the recreation fund? When was the decision made? Did we make the decision to route that into the recreation fund, or was that just did that come to council?
Chief Financial Officer.
That did not come to council. The issue was what happens to the revenues, and in talking with Mr. Flaherty, we decided that it was fine to put those revenues, since the Recreation Department was, or the Neighborhood Services Department was handling those, to put those fees into the Recreation Fund.
And then, so I'm going to jump ahead a little, and I'm trying to find in our budget the revenue to, how does that, my basic understanding is that fund then offsets some of the costs of running sports programs and things like that?
It's the direct cost of running the programs that run at the community centers, and they recently, a couple of years ago, we combined that with the athletic fund. It was an athletic and youth center fund. We combined it to recreation fund, and all those direct charges flow through that fund.
And so would that be on the revenue generated of neighborhood services, or where would I find that?
Well, the recreation fund, and I'm just going to take you back to the fund sheet. The other one was page 66 in the fund sheet.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I saw it in there, but
yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out where that money gets spent, or, I assume other things go into that, like when I go take my Zumba class, as if I've ever taken one, but, does that go into the recreation fund?
All your direct class type revenue, you correct me if I'm wrong, but your direct class revenue and expenses go through the recreation fund, and the best depiction of that in the budget is back in the fund sheets, and it shows you the actual revenues, I think, and the expenditures for that. That fund usually zeroes out. There may be some fund balance pulled down for capital or non-capitalized assets that we have there. It should be around 64, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to flip back.
Yeah, it is. It's page 63 and 64. Right. Well, so then when we put money, when we take parking money and we put it in there, is then the intent to lower fees for Zumba, or is it for some?
It would probably be used like the other overage underages are for non-capitalized assets if they need something that's under $5,000 or some fixed assets, something that they're buying out of that for the programs.
Okay.
Because there's a running balance, in that fund. It doesn't, of course, break even, and so it goes into those programs.
Okay. Well, one thing that crossed my mind as I was reviewing the budget is I know that the other parking that other organizations have down for the Maritime Park events, much of their money goes to local nonprofits, and I know that we have had extensive fund discussions about outside agency funding in the past and whether to fund human service areas, and I just thought that, if it might be something worth considering by this council if we would like to use some of those dollars from that parking to pay if we're interested in funding some money to human services. That might be a way to balance the budget while meeting our goals.
The option would be to put that in the general fund, but Mr. Flaherty asked, and it's such a minimal revenue, we went ahead and put it in the recreation fund.
Yeah, and there's merit, but I just was throwing that out as when we get into our outside agency funding, that could be something to consider.
Well, since Dr. Pratt has brought up an idea of moving it out to be utilized elsewhere, do we have the ability of taking it out at this time? Because tomorrow we're going to have that discussion on outside agency funding, etc. Do we have the ability to take it out of that fund and use it as she has suggested?
Well, certainly, I think it might be best to go through the agency funding. It's not going anywhere, and it's like I did a presentation, I think it was last week, to the CMPA Audit and Ops Committee on the budget, my thoughts on their budget, not the city budget. And, you know, they are a new entity. Is that money going to be there? We don't know because it's offset by expenses. So, you know, while right now it's there through 6/30 with the other expenses and that type of thing that are going to be there, is it going to be there? We could budget it, but then if you earmark it directly for ABC, nonprofit, and then if it doesn't come in, do you say, well, then you don't get it? So it may be better to look at it as a more global issue. Do you want to give ABC nonprofit some money and then just look at putting that in the budget and not necessarily earmarking it to certain revenues? Because then if the revenues fall, does that mean that that organization who's probably already playing their budget gets cut? And that's why we've historically not tied it directly to a revenue, but gave them an appropriation, and how revenues fail is how they fail.
And I guess I was bringing that up because last year I remember going through the budget process, and there was criticism out there that the council was trying to change things in the budget, but we have to present a balanced budget. And so in my mind I was thinking, well, if we went and upped a number somewhere, this is somewhere we could down a number, which may or may not be the ultimate source of that money, but it was just a way to consider. And I'm not advocating any particular amount, but just as we go forward, there might be some ability to balance the budget if we make any small changes with that money.
Okay, thank you.
The next slide is regarding the Tennis Center Fund short revenue review. In fiscal year 2012, the tennis membership fees were increased by 10%, and a revenue comparison fiscal year 11 and 12 does show an 8.5 increase in court fee revenues, which is an $11,240 increase. Yes.
Y'all know that the tennis portion couldn't get by without me commenting on that. I just want also, this actual number could even increase more. I think that the club in Gulf Breeze is in trouble. I think that recently some folks got involved with that club before foreclosure, and I understand that their due diligence period is about over, and that could not continue on, that being the club, and those folks are going to have to go somewhere. So I hope that we're in a position to welcome those folks at Roger Scott and make sure they're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. The next slide is also reviewing revenue, but it's reviewing the Municipal Golf Course Fund. In fiscal year 2012, the budget established 2 new fees, which will offset the capital improvement cost. There were 2 surcharges. One was for member, it was $1, and another is non-member, which is $2. And as of June 30th, 2012, period 9, this total in this account is $30,636. There are no recommended fee increases in 2013, excuse me. However, in the Recreation Fund, where the Community Resource Center rentals are accounted for, there was a fee structure change, and that was to the Sanders Beach Corinne Jones Community Resource Center, and that was the rental of the ballroom. This year, and since it reopened, there have been 2 rentals for the ballroom. One included the kitchen and one excluded the kitchen. It was with or without the kitchen. We have found that to keep it more consistent with the rest of the facilities and their rentals, we have combined the fee. It's a little bit lower than with the kitchen, and we have found that most of the rentals would like the kitchen, but it is more than without the kitchen. So that fee was restructured and changed, so it doesn't show the same as fiscal year 12. Other than that, all the fees have stayed the same.
How much is the fee?
The fee is $215 per hour.
$215 per hour?
$215 per hour.
That's with or without?
That's, yes, it's all-inclusive at this time.
Okay.
You don't have to pick and choose.
Oh, okay. I want to make that clear. Thank you.
May I just ask, since we're on the fees, I did have a couple other questions about it. I see on the swim teams at Roger Scott, there's member and non-member, city resident, non-city resident. I didn't know we had memberships for Roger Scott.
Yes.
Yeah,
when Roger Scott reopened after the renovation, you can actually buy a membership fee.
Okay.
And that's that fee.
Okay, and I just didn't even see membership listed as something you could buy there. I mean, oh wait, no, there it is. Okay, I got lost on that. And then I also noticed, just in going through, that in the athletic programs there were a lot of changes from last year. Was that just that someone finally went through and said, no, we're not doing this, we are doing that? It's just a clean.
There were some programs that weren't actually happening, and they were just on the books, and so the athletic division went through and kind of cleaned up those.
Okay, that was very nice to clean that up. Thank you.
The only other thing to mention about the fee schedule is that none of the CMP rentals, the scheduled events, or anything doing with the CMP contract has been incorporated into that fee schedule. Mr. Spencer.
Thanks. Is this the appropriate time to ask about the concessions at the Roger Scott Tennis Center?
Yes.
I mean, there's no better time.
That's right.
Okay, how's that? When I was there for one of my USTA matches, I happened to be there on, it was a Tuesday, or it was a weekday evening, and it was while Mr. Flaherty was still with the city. That gentleman that also has a canvas operation, right? Right. He was in the midst of an earnest attempt to put together, using very much his own resources, somewhat of an outdoor, I mean, we could sit at a bar area. He was trying to put some cooking equipment in. But the bottom line is, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. Given the caliber of that Roger Scott Center and the nearby Vickery Center, and given what we want to create in our city, and given the fact that now Roger Scott is being it's the host of the wheelchair tennis tournament. It is the host of what is becoming a better attended national event with juniors. Anyway, this vendor was trying to build something that couldn't be, in my opinion, more or less consistent than with what we want to create. Not a fault of his own, but where are we on that particular facility? It stands out like a sore thumb. It is an absolute embarrassment because it's just an aberration. You all, fellow council members, you'd have to see it to believe it. I'm going to start waving my arms like Sherry did last council meeting Thursday night. They're going up. You'd have to see it to believe it.
A little more passion.
Okay. So what? This is the time to bring it up. It's
that issue is being addressed. He had a one-year concessionaire agreement with the city of Pensacola, which expired July 4th. He's trying to get an extension, or to renew. A renewal is a better word for it. Mr. Reynolds has gone out there, viewed it, because before Mr. Flaherty left, the renewal agreement was for a flat fee monthly, because right now he's doing a 20% net revenue over his profit and losses. Anyway, he took his case to the mayor's office, because he didn't want to pay a flat rate. And so that took Mr. Reynolds out there to view the area, and he saw the condition. And so right now, that vendor has 60 days to meet a specific criteria over what the city wants it to look like and how to clean it up. And so we're waiting for the 60 days.
Okay, I didn't realize that that's the hot button at all.
A question, Mr. Spencer, was this the same vendor that wanted to?
Just a minute.
Excuse me, go ahead.
We need to zero in on the proposed budget now. If we're going to deviate and start talking about other things, I think we will possibly will spend our time here unproductive. So if we can zero in on budget items, I think we
Well, I knew he was a vendor, and he was in some way linked to us through payment of a fee.
Okay.
But
Councilman Gerald.
I apologize.
I can hold that question because I was just wondering if that was the same vendor that wanted to provide alcoholic beverages, or is that a different vendor? That's a different story?
It's the same vendor.
Same vendor?
Same vendor.
Continue, please.
Thank you. My next slide is regarding investing in neighborhoods. It's the two new resource centers that should begin hopefully sometime soon. There is Legion Field Resource Center and the Woodland Heights Resource Center. Legion Field, the bid has not been advertised yet. They have the drawings, the diagrams, they're working on that. And then the Woodland Heights, the bid opens on July 19th, and they are under evaluation. But those projects are not expected to have a completion date until the beginning of fiscal year 14. And that finishes it. We're on discussion. We're done.
No.
Just a minute. Just a minute. Talk in the mic. Councilwoman Myers, I'm not going to tell you that anymore. Please talk in the mic.
Maybe you just have to hang it around my neck. I have such a big mouth, I don't know why I need it.
Can't hear you. You got the floor.
Oh, okay. First of all, I was out of the room when you started your presentation, so I didn't get your name. I know who this lady is, but I don't know you.
I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself.
Can you speak a little louder in the mic?
Sure. My name is Melinda Meola. I'm your Budget and Finance Manager at Neighborhood Services.
How do you spell your last name?
M-E-O-L-A.
M-E-O-L-A. Well, it's not nice to meet you.
Oh.
And so where do you fall on the neighborhood services chart?
I would be in the Office of the Director.
Let me see, Office of the Director.
And I am your Administrative Officer 3 underneath that category in that activity.
Okay. It's a pretty elaborate scheme here we have. Okay, maybe you can answer some of these questions then. Under neighborhood enhancements, what does that mean?
Neighborhood enhancements is a split program. It is actually the Chief of Neighborhoods, who is Miss Helen Gibson, and her personal services are charged out of the mayor's office. She reports to the mayor. However, her program is tied with us, so her operating budget for neighborhood enhancements, I believe it was formerly NET, is included in our budget, and that program falls within that category.
All right, I was just wondering, what is a neighborhood enhancement? What would that be like?
Yes, Miss Gibson is here. I would like she can
playground equipment or
If I may.
Okay, so capital projects would fall under what? Public Works or? Anyway, go ahead and, because I don't know what it means.
Councilwoman Meyer and Council. Basically, the neighborhood enhancements involves most of the neighborhood-related activities that I am responsible for implementing, including the Neighborhood Leadership Academy, any notices and any assistance to the neighborhood associations in terms of capacity building, in terms of public notices, in terms of meeting notices. All of those things will fall under neighborhood enhancement.
Okay.
Neighborhood design guidelines, all those things. Some of the things, it kind of bleeds across some of the areas that the other departments have been talking about, such as some of the planning efforts that we have done some, as you're aware, streetscape projects. So it kind of bleeds.
Okay. What about Office of the Director, $711,000? Does that include everything on the flow chart here?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So the 711 is that. Now, Pensacola Community Initiative Program, I noticed that there's only $24,900 in that. Is that the PIC grant?
Yes, it is. And that's also something that Ms. Chalk monitors and manages.
Okay, I'm just wondering if we can find more money in the budget for that. And I'm thinking of maybe reducing, I'm going to bring this up to council later tomorrow, reducing what we give to Pensacola Arts, I think it is. We've increased their budget by about $45,000. And I'm wondering if we can maybe, so that the budget balances, that's one source we could take it from. But 24.9 is not going to go very far in terms of, in my opinion. I'll let you answer that.
Councilwoman, the 24.9, well, let me just say that the PCIP funding has two sources. The general fund, which has for many years been 24.9, and it is also supplemented by the Penny for Progress money, which $25,000 is typically appropriated out of that fund.
And let me say that the confusion maybe is the programs, and there Ms. Gibson is talking about specifically the amount that is given, which is for the first time only the amount that is in that program. Her salary and other operating expenses and those type of things that used to be included in the 37, the 46, and the 44 are allocations of time and salary and that type of thing, which Ms. Gibson's salary is totally in the mayor's office now. So this is simply, the 24.9 is not necessarily a reduction. It is the same amount, as she just said, that we've had for the last several years for the program. So the actual participant amount is not changing. The other amounts were allocations of individuals' time and that type of thing that was previously charged in the neighborhood services budget, but now is being charged in the mayor's office. So only the correct amount is being shown now.
Okay, so how much is going to be in the PIC funds?
It's 24.9, just like it has. Plus the Penny for Progress money.
And how much is that?
About 25,000, I believe Ms. Gibson said.
25,000?
Yes.
So we're looking at around $51,000.
Around 50.
Just off the
And
top.
historically, that's what it's been. For those improvements that could be made through Penny for Progress that were eligible for that money,
Yeah.
we charge those there. And the others come directly from the general fund, and this is where it's budgeted. And I understand it looks like it's less, but it's really the salary and expense allocation that's no longer there and is being charged directly to the mayor's office.
Okay, so all of this that I'm looking at on page 233 is in the mayor's office?
No, ma'am, no.
Okay.
Simplicity, simple to put it, if you look at the 44.7 in FY12 and the 24.9 in FY13, You see the 24.9 in FY
Yeah.
14 and the 44.7 in 12. That 24.9 is part of the 44.7. The difference there was for salaries that were allocated there that are no longer allocated there. But what the participant is directly getting is remaining the same for the program.
Okay, now what about the next item, programs, classes, and activities?
Well, I'll let Melinda answer that.
What's that for?
Programs. It's for all our recreation programs, are they not? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the drop-in use, is it not? It's what we break up.
Zumba.
Zumba? Actually, I thought Zumba went somewhere else.
Okay, no, what did you just say?
I said
sorry.
Zumba. It's like our Zumba classes, our Tai Chi classes, our summer camp programs. Those are the classes, programs that they're, if I'm reading it correctly.
Okay, what, in the next line, Recreation Resource Center Administration, that's $500,000. What's that for?
Ms. Myers, you do know that these are all the next few pages.
The programs have descriptions that follow them. So like you asked about the programs classes, it's city resource centers, depending on their overall size, and it provides the fitness rooms with equipment, gymnasium, kitchens, one or more multi-use meeting rooms, programs, either run by the staff or instructors hired by the city. And so there are program descriptions of each and every program that follows that summary, program summary.
Okay, I would just like to ask, I have often have older people come up to me and complain that there are not enough activities for older people outdoors. People think when we get old that all we want to do is sit inside and play bridge. Well, I've got news for you. That is absolutely untrue. But when you look at our parks and who they're designed for, they are not designed for older people, and I'm saying people over the age of 55, to do anything in except maybe walk around. So next year, or during this year, I hope that some attention will be given to activities for people who are older, who usually own property and pay taxes, and who don't have the knees to play tennis or run, but can walk and do other not too exertional types of things. I just wanted to get that out there, just as a suggestion, and hopefully I'll see a little difference in the kinds of activities that come before us next year.
Thank you.
Any other?
Just really quickly, I was concerned about the PCIP funds as well, and I'm glad to see, I looked at the penny for progress, and we actually do have money left, because I know that the mayor has spent every penny until 2017. It's allocated, so I was concerned. I did want to find out, as I had asked in some other presentations about advertising, that it's being increased from $50,400 to $103,900. What is the return on investment there? What are specific plans and programs that will be advertising for neighborhood services?
Okay, yeah.
What we usually advertise is the ones that are revenue generating, like our summer camp programs, our after-school programs, tennis programs, golf programs, and that does increase our participation. It's kind of like the tree in the woods. If you're not there, does it fall? We can create great programs, and we've noticed an increase in participation since we actually started marketing. Before we were okay, now we're jamming, quite frankly, yeah.
Thank you.
But also, the majority of the increases has to do with the Zimmerman contract, does it not, Dick?
That's correct. If you recall, Mr. Flaherty in last year's budget, and I think he actually started in the 11 budget, had brought the idea that they really need to start advertising the total programs, because the city programs have a lot to offer and people just weren't aware of them. So you just heard that they've been very popular and that type of thing. With that, we have, part of the allocation was that the Zimmerman contract, part of that would be allocated to the Neighborhood Services Department, and that was $50,000. So he had about 50 there, and then another 50 for that contract.
So they'll be doing direct marketing then for neighborhood services, Zimmerman, or just add
That would
copy?
that would be their allocated portion of what it is. I guess they could be doing some direct, but it would be related to the Neighborhood Services Department.
Okay, we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to tack on to that, too. I mean, we've had it looks like a doubling of that cost. And I was wondering who, excuse me, who chooses, who do we advertise with? Could you give me some examples? Who makes the decision on who we advertise?
Well, it's according to what we're actually offering. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, it's, if we're doing youth programs, then it would be like the Parent Magazine, P&J, maybe some news media. But if it's athletics, then we actually kind of target the media that actually fits that market. Now, if we're doing like a special event, like an Easter egg hunt or Halloween, everybody gets a piece of it, quite frankly. That goes to every type of media that we can possibly find. We don't necessarily pay for a lot of our print media. A lot of it is it's free advertisement, press releases. We also get quite a few sponsors that come aboard. A lot of the marketing money goes toward not necessarily promotional items, but you see the flags that we put out, those kind of things. It kind of brands us. Last year we bought a bus wrap to go on our bus to advertise that, you know, this is a recreation bus. It was a big white bus. Now it's a Play Pensacola bus. Those kind of things, kind of branding ourselves as a recreation facility.
Yeah, the only time I was trying to remember where I've actually seen advertising for Parks and Rec, and I remember I saw it in the Weekly Inquirer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Weekly.
Really?
Is that weekly?
Mm-hmm. We've been in there, and then
It seems like we're all in there often, like full pages ads.
we actually, a lot of our CMPA stuff, which is a separate budget, we actually go through in Weekly, but Weekly is one of our sponsors. So we've been able to, they help us a lot with that. But a lot of the advertisement is a lot of like, unfortunately, we're grassroots. If we're doing a children's programs, we print 50,000 flyers and send them to the school system. We put stuff in the ESP, we put banners up, and those things do have a direct cost that sponsors are not going to pay for.
The Weekly Star, I mean the In Weekly. Yeah, okay, they're one of our sponsors. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. On the swimming pool, just to name something, we anticipate revenue going down, though our objective is to raise attendance 10% for one pool and 25% for the other. Tell me about how that math works.
That's your baby.
Let me look at the numbers, sorry. I want to say, and from what I'm remembering in the past, is they were using 10 predictions, or 11, the actual amounts that came in at 11 when we were doing the budget, planning the budget. And I remember right, I want to say that they thought that 12 was a little bit too high, so they reduced it.
So
The projection,
okay.
the budget.
And so, do we actually anticipate that this year, I mean, I think last year we anticipated a 10% increase in attendance, and now I guess we're not seeing that, but it now says we expect a 10% increase in attendance. Do we think that we will get that, or do you think that we're at a status quo kind of budget and we'll be happy to get the same number of kids in our pool as we did last summer?
I would have to look at the current numbers. I'm sorry, I do not know those.
Okay. And I guess, and I was, Councilwoman Myers mentioned the Office of Director, the increase in $40,000 in that office. I know technically this budget doesn't include raises. What's the reasoning for the increase in that office?
I believe, isn't it, Melinda, that's where we put the contract, the increase in marketing? And in the program it's spread?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
It's
that's
same
the
money we're
marketing
talking about.
increase, okay. And then, on the community centers, we also see an increase in their budget. Is that marketing, or is that, because the new centers aren't going to be online in this fiscal year?
It wouldn't be the marketing. The marketing, when David was here, he wanted it all in the Office of Director, and that's why you see the majority of that there. The increase in the community centers would most likely be operational type
So we
things.
expect
Utilities, expenses, insurance, that type of thing.
It'll be a 10% increase in the operational costs at the,
Yeah, we've seen an increase
Or
in
not,
utilities that they've had to work with, and also in their insurance that we've been dealing with.
okay. And then I'll also ask about the marketing, Councilwoman DeWeese asked, what's our return on investment that we expect on this? And I understand that, it is good to get the word out there. It's doubling the marketing. I don't think we're going to get a doubling of attendance from it, but I'm also concerned. I see that we don't increase the marketing for the golf course or for Roger Scott. And Councilman Johnson mentioned the club is a great place to start trying to recruit. I think that there is a potential growth in both of those areas, and it's not reflected in advertising dollars for those programs. And I didn't know, is the marketing that you plan to do through the general fund also for those programs?
When Mr. Flaherty developed the program, that's what he wanted, and that's why he wanted it in the Office of Director, because he said they were overencompassing all of the areas. And so to break out what piece is what, he thought he would get more bang for the buck in the total advertising and keeping it in his office instead of spreading it out to the departments. And a direct charge to golf or a direct charge to tennis more than they were already had there. So that when council approved it, and it was last year or the year before for the marketing, it was understood that would be completely for all the programs but in his office.
Well, council never approved the marketing for this new advertising agency.
For the increase, it was zero, basically, is what they had, and then council approved $50,000 to be put in there, and what's being proposed this year is an additional $50,000.
Okay. And so then you will do extra charges overhead charges to Roger Scott and the golf course?
They don't, most likely not. We have not charged tennis for overhead in quite some time. If you remember, they had an issue with the revenues at one point, and that has not been charged. Golf course, there's no overhead being charged, and that's been for quite some time. It's been to general fund, to an enterprise fund, to a special revenue fund, and we're already subsidizing them, and the plan there is to reduce their subsidy from the general fund by $10,000 a year, so those charges for marketing will not be charged back.
Yeah, I just think it would be relevant to somehow account for how much we're spending in those funds, or on behalf of those funds, because I think that's really one of our growth potentials, and I guess I don't see an expected, in our current budget, an expected growth in revenue generated to really, so it shows me in our revenue that we as a city don't have faith in the marketing plan that we're about to spend an extra $50 million on if we aren't expecting a growth in our revenue. And so I guess that's been troubling me about what we're actually hoping to accomplish with this advertising money.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Walter Wallace. I'm with the Woodland Heights Neighborhood Association, also a member. See now, two issues I want to bring. Councilman Brian Spencer, I don't know where you've been, but there have been no citizen input in policy procedure in the city in a little while, so I don't know where you've been, so don't expect nothing to start happening anytime soon. But I want to address the parking fee from the Maritime Park. I think that some of that fee could go to the Park and Recreation Scholarship Fund they have set up for city our kids that parents cannot afford them to participate in some of the programs that are run at these resource centers. So I think the council should look at putting some of that money into that scholarship fund that the Park and Recreation run. Also, I'd like to address one issue with the neighborhood department is that I learned, especially from the Florida Neighborhood Conference, and I know as an individual, the president of Woodland Heights and some other nonprofit, we have a tough time trying to get permits and trying to hold an event for the public in the city. It's a nightmare. The policies and procedure need to be changed. I noticed when I was in the conference, they brought that up. Some cities are streamlining so citizens can put on events, neighborhood events, community events, without the extra cost. It almost would kill my neighborhood association to try to put on a neighborhood event because the permit, the liabilities, and all this stuff you got to have that's blocking. I think the neighborhood department needs to sit down with the neighborhood association and nonprofit and see whether are the things that stopping them from having an event, and one of them is the procedure. So we need to look at streamlining where a nonprofit and neighborhood association can have events on city property without the extravagant expenditures and manpower that it takes to get a permit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You heard those comments, thinking would y'all take those back of any kind of flexibility y'all can have to respond to some of the changes that were suggested, discuss with the mayor. We will come back for our final deal. Then if you have an opportunity, you say you can, and if you can't, then you point out also, please. Okay, we're running behind schedule. Yes, ma'am.
Just very quickly, I'm Laura McKnight with the Council of Neighborhood Presidents, and we were all down this afternoon because we were concerned about the PCIP grants. That was one of our top 3 priorities. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon to talk with y'all again, but just wanted to thank you guys.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We really want to include the neighborhood groups in this conversation. Ms. Mack?
3 quick questions for Mr. Barker or the staff from Parks and Recreation. I would like to make reference to page 232 in the budget, and the question is under revenue generated where it shows park rentals, why is there not a line item showing facility rentals as in community center rentals? I would like to know how much we're generating in revenue from community center room rentals, and that is not shown as an item under revenue generated.
We have that broken down. It's not broken down in the budget, but I believe that we do have a line item for the rentals themselves in the fund, so we can get you that information.
Well, I would like an explanation why it's not here. I mean, you've got swimming fees, park rentals. Why isn't it here? There's no reason it should not be here, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that is in the recreation fund, which is a separate fund, and this is dealing, this part of the budget and the programs that they're dealing with do not specifically outline that detail in here. Now, we could, but like I say, I can get you that information so that you can see that.
Okay, I'd appreciate it, but I think council would like to know how much revenue is being generated from facility and room rentals too, but I will look forward to that information.
We can get that information.
Okay.
Get that, please.
Yes, sir, we can get
thank
that.
you. Actually, just another question. The other one was too minute to bother with. In the budget message, speaking about golf course vendors, there was the following statement. Increase in operating expenses is mainly attributed to an increase in other contractual services. Vendor rates have increased. I wanted to point this out because we all know that, particularly in Public Works, and I will be addressing that in Public Works tomorrow, that we're doing an awful lot of outsourcing. And while the budget in general shows a gain, a net gain, lower salary and benefit expenses compared with contractual services, there's about a 200,000 gain. But here's an example, council members, of what can happen is that you get vendor prices rising at the same time that you no longer have the staff to perform those services. So my question is, a two-part question, is it still cheaper for Osceola Golf Course to contract out the services of these vendors whose prices have risen, and at what point will you be aware that you are paying more for contractors than you would for employees? And I'll sit down. Thank you.
You care to respond to that?
I would.
Please.
I was looking at the other contractual services on the golf fund, and the increases are basically two items, and it's the alarm system, Sonatrol, which has increased, and also the golf cart. They added an additional golf cart, and the monthly fees for renting the golf cart increased from $556 $100 or $5,557 a month. 4,000, excuse me, 16. I can't get it right. Let me look at my notes. How's that? I did put the dollar amount in here because I was going to address that. I'm sorry. And I did miss my notes. But it did, gosh, and right now I can't find them. But it did go up. The golf cart expense, that was under the golf. Sorry, this is my first time presenting to you. And I'm hunting for stuff. Keep going.
Well, maybe,
thank you.
Maybe, Dick,
we can get that.
Outsource, and we can show the comparison what we outsourced and what the actual cost was, and see whether we made some savings and not. Could you bring that back?
I will. In both of those cases, with those vendors that she mentioned, it's not something that is necessarily similar to. I mean, we wouldn't have a security that we run, and of course golf carts we've always rented, and evidently they've been increasing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it was $3,575 a month, and it increased to $4,095 a month.
Okay.
Ever since they opened and changed their new contract.
Thank you. As a matter of record, get that, and then we'll have a little short discussion on that tomorrow.
Yeah, and if I could too, please, excuse me, Mr. Vice President, get a detailed details on this 1039 on advertising, who we actually that goes to, if it goes through Zimmerman to the different media outlets. If I could get more detail on that. And Mr. Barker, actually with all that advertising as we go through this budget, I've heard a lot of questions about advertising. If we could get that broken down by department. I keep hearing this with the advertising. It might be helpful for this city council to maybe approve this budget or not by those numbers. I keep hearing it spoken over and over again. Who are we spending it with? Pensacola Voice or Pensacola News Journal or who? It would just be helpful as we move around those details if we could, if that's okay.
More specific.
Yes, more specific, yeah.
By department, but you mean
well, there's we keep the.
I think basically we got what you want.
Yeah, but every time we keep talking about advertising, every department that comes before us, if we could get more details on that, how that money is spent. Thank you.
We do have that detail they'll pass out to you.
Oh, we did? Okay, great.
All right, thank you so very much. We went over a little bit, but in the interest of everybody need to know, get some explanation, we can expect that. I think the next final group here